Welcome to Scott Fox After 9. Wrapping up a week with a listener DM episode. And there are some great messages coming up that I'm going to get to in just a sec. Before I get into it, though, I want to say thank you. This has been a really great week. Throughout the week, I've been bringing you audio around various different situations that are unfolding here in Canada and around the world, and from the World Economic Forum. So if you didn't get a chance to hear all the episodes this week and you've got some time this weekend, go back and give them a listen, because there was some real insightful stuff that happened. In particular, I'm getting a lot of feedback on the episode where I played Mark Carney's speech from the World Economic Forum, and I broke it down to try and offer my insight bit by bit throughout the speech, and to try and offer a little bit of clarity on what the Prime Minister was talking about, because as good as the speech was, he still kind of speaks in riddles and rhymes, and he still hasn't made quite clear what the new world order is as he sees it, and he still hasn't told us where Canada fits into the new world order. He sort of implied we're a middle power. That might be a bit of a stretch, but anyway, feel free to go back and listen to those episodes. Now let's get to your DMs. To do it, I'm going to bring in the great Anna Almeida. How you doing, Anna?
I'm good. You have a lot of DMs, and yeah, you really did break things down for people, and they're excited to chat with you.
Before we get to it, we'll just point out that we come to you here from Southern Ontario, and it is the coldest place that I'm aware of anywhere in the world right now. It is going to be so frigid cold. You and I had a great conversation this week about what to do about the homeless people.
Yeah.
I got a great DM that came in, and I don't think we're going to read it on this episode, but basically it was a bus driver who takes money out of her own pocket, goes to Costco and buys packages of those hand warmers and hands them out to people when she sees them sleeping in a bus shelter or in the lobby of a bank and things like that. And I think that's amazing. She also carries around old blankets and coats that she can just hand to somebody, because as bad as it is that there's people sleeping outside, some of these people don't even have a coat. It's insanity.
It is insanity. And I do see people walking around and they're underdressed for this weather. And it breaks my heart, because I don't know their circumstances. I don't know what led them to this point, but it doesn't even matter. They should be warm, and they should have a place to go to get warm, where they are not afraid that they're going to get kicked out.
Yeah, they're going to get kicked out. Or if they go to a shelter, they're afraid they're going to get assaulted or raped or be around drug use and stuff like that. I mean, a lot of these people have no options. And not lost on me is the fact that in the vast majority of cases, these people did nothing wrong. You know, I mean, if their house or their home just became too unaffordable, that's not their fault. I mean, that's conditions in the whole country is experiencing.
It's reality.
If they got hooked on opioids or other drugs, well, let's talk to the opioid manufacturers and the medical establishment that prescribed all those opioids that got them hooked. You know, there's just so many examples of how people didn't ask for this. No one wants to be in that scenario. And I just hope that people have some compassion, and anybody who's able to, who has the resources, the money or the time or whatever, is trying to help people who need it. And I'm going to put my money where my mouth is, and I'm going to do whatever I can this weekend too. I think I'm just going to pick up a bunch of prepaid like Tim's cards or McDonald's cards,
so nice.
And I'm just going to hand them out to people who look cold. And if that helps even a little bit, then I'm going to consider that money well spent.
Absolutely. And just don't ignore them if you're walking by. Sometimes it's just a simple hello can make a difference in somebody's day. You don't know what's going on.
That's a great point. You're absolutely right. Just knowing that there's somebody out there who's thinking about them and who cares. So it could probably seem pretty bleak if they're out there in the streets right now. And I just feel really bad for those people.
Me too.
All right. You ready to get to some DMs?
Yeah, we got lots. All right.
Okay,
are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right, starting with Hunter. Hey, Scott, thanks for taking time out of your weekend to break down the headlines. Question. I've been holding on to the idea that Carney's policies could push us into enough financial hardship that Canada would eventually become part of the U.S. I actually see that as a positive for my kids and grandkids. Now that Carney seems to be turning away from the U.S., is that even still a possibility? And would Trump realistically use force to take Canada if this continues? Honestly, I hope so. Thanks, Hunter.
He hopes the U.S. uses force.
To get us, yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, so the way things are going right now, as I see them, Canada is in a far worse spot than we're letting on. It's a lot of bravado. It's a lot of chest pounding. It's a lot of Canada strong and stuff like that. But the reality is our financial situation in this country is not good. And even if we did have the ability to start exporting oil tomorrow, it would take a long time for that to ripple through the economy and try and save the country from the financial brink. And it's not just government money that I'm talking about. I'm talking about the middle class. There's so many people that are basically basically broke. They're almost insolvent. The last number that I saw was the majority of Canadians are within $200 a month of being insolvent. $200. Yep. That's it. And that doesn't leave a lot of money to play with. I see a lot of businesses going under. I think it's going to happen. I think more are going to relocate because not just to get around the tariffs, but just because the grass is greener in some cases. And that's not a shot at Canada. And it's not to pump up the tires in America, but they're doing a lot of stuff right there. Could the U.S. come in and take us over? I think somebody is going to. It's got to be on their mind. I think our biggest threat right now is not being taken over by the Americans. I think our biggest threat, and nobody is talking about it, is national unity. We have got Alberta getting ready to vote. And if Alberta votes to become an independent republic or an independent republic within Canada or whatever they call themselves, I think they'd be crazy to not at least consider joining the U.S. And I think that that's the way it's going to go. As it sits right now on January the 23rd at 9:30 in the morning, I think we're at real risk of losing Alberta. And if we lose Alberta, who else is going? There's no reason to think Saskatchewan would want to stay. There's no reason to think other provinces would want to stay if Alberta goes. And keep in mind, Alberta, when we do get cooking and make ourselves an actual energy superpower, that's where most of the energy is. So something's going to happen. I don't know if Canada's going to look the way Canada looks now, even a year from now. I think national unity should be top of mind for everybody. And I don't want to see the country break up, but people are upset and they feel disenfranchised and their government is not listening to them. Nobody is getting ahead. And I think that when it comes down to a question of would you rather go with the Americans and have that security, have that peace of mind, not be paying any income tax and all the other U.S. rules that are actually quite attractive, I think a lot more people are going to do that. I think they're going to be interested in that anyway. So national unity, that's my biggest concern. If the country does fracture, then we're ripe for the picking. And it could be the Americans, it could be the Chinese, it could be any of them. I don't know exactly. Nobody's got a crystal ball, but please do not take any solace in what they're trying to tell you on the news, that things are great and Canada's strong. We're going to be our own best customer. The reality is the middle class is broke. We need immediate, impactful interest rate cuts to try and put money in people's pocket because that's the best stimulus that we could give the businesses here in Canada. Allow people to spend money in those places. The only way that's going to happen is to cut interest rates quickly, and they should also be looking at a tax cut. If those two things don't happen really, really soon, I think Alberta's gone, and we're going to be in a national unity crisis. That's just the way I see this going, guys.
Okay. Sunny writes, hey, great content, Scott. I personally love all the Trump talk.
Oh, he does?
Yep. Sunny likes it.
Let me get your opinion on this because... You know, when Donald Trump got reelected, second term, he had a massive mandate from the American people to do exactly what he's doing right now. And the media doesn't give him fair coverage in America, just like they don't give fair coverage to the conservatives in Canada. We have a very liberal media. The reality is, on the ground, things are looking up in America. There's a lot of reason to think things are going to continue to boom in America. And I think he's done exactly what the American people elected him to do. Unfortunately, to get his point across, he has a very weird strategy and he doesn't seem to care what people think of him. Well, here, people don't think very highly of him at all. And that's mainly his own fault. It's the way he approaches things. It's a cadence that people in Canada aren't used to. And they're certainly not used to seeing that from the president of the United States, being as brash and as bold as Donald Trump is. It turns a lot of people off here, to be completely honest. I think it's one of those ones where if you like the policy, you got to hold your nose and put up with the interpersonal issues that the guy's got. But I know that Canadians don't like him. So I really do try and limit the amount of Donald Trump that I play in this pod because it is a turnoff for a lot of people. But it's interesting to hear from somebody who does enjoy that. Thank you for telling me that. I don't have any plans to change. I'm still going to very much limit how much of the president I play. But I'm also kind of comfortable saying that he doesn't really say that much. You know, if Trump gives a 90-minute speech, there's probably going to be about 3 minutes in the 90 minutes that's worth playing. And the rest of it it's a lot of rambling. It's a lot of grievances. And it's not really getting to policy, which is what I think people want to hear about.
All right. Well, David writes, really good episode, Scott, especially your breakdown of Carney's Davos speech.
Thank you.
Yeah. And I thought it was well written and more concise than Trump's. So the first half felt like Carney complaining that Trump disrupted his globalist agenda and criticizing America First, a concept he might want to adopt. To his credit, the final part promoting Canada and our natural resources was strong. But as you said, actions matter more than words, so we'll see where this goes. Hopefully not towards more trade with China. That's from David.
There's a lot of people that are very, very concerned about what we've done with China, and they have every right to be. And by the way, that's not a political thing. I hear it from liberals just as much as I hear it from conservatives that have serious concerns about the way things are going, Carney taking us more towards China. Now, as far as Trump disrupting Mark Carney's New World Order, that's absolutely true. That's one of those things that we shouldn't even have to debate. At one point, it was a conspiracy theory. Now we know that the whole goal was a one world globalist agenda. And the stuff they talk about at the World Economic Forum, the things they've been talking about for many years now, were all happening right before our eyes in real time. But because they didn't all happen at once, and because nobody came on TV and said, okay, now we're going to transition everyone into 15-minute cities. It doesn't mean it wasn't happening. It's happening all across, or it was happening in America. It's still happening all across Canada. Donald Trump did interrupt Mark Carney's goal, and Mark Carney is a senior leader amongst those elites at the World Economic Forum. So he was all in on that, and Mark Carney has had to pivot just as much as all the other countries in the world because Mark did want that globalist one world government. Trump pulling America back from that, saying we're not going to participate in your multinational bodies and things like that. We're going to do America first. We're not even sending foreign aid out there anymore until we take care of Americans. There's a lot of Canadians who hear that and think we need Canada first. And you don't have to like Donald Trump to agree with an America first or a Canada first policy. That's not even a political thing. It's a philosophy for a country. You take care of your own, then you help out the rest of the world or places who need it. I'm wondering when people are going to start sending foreign aid to Canada. When are they going to start doing that? Think about all the trillions of dollars we've sent around the world in foreign aid because people were poor and suffering and homeless and hungry.
I mean, we're just talking about the homeless.
We've got that problem here. I want to know when other countries are going to start sending us foreign aid. I wouldn't mind some checks from countries in Europe and places like that. That'd be great. I think we do need to get to a Canada first place. I don't think Mark Carney has any time at all for Donald Trump, and I think that him taking us towards China is part of the goal. You know what? I have a great piece of audio I want to play for you.
Okay.
Can I do this?
Yes, please.
Normally, I don't play a lot of audio in the listener DMs episodes, but there's some really cool stuff that's come out. And I would highly encourage anyone who gets some time over the weekend to check out the Elon Musk speech that he did at the World Economic Forum. One of the things he did was talk about the immediate future. And he sees not long from now, this isn't like some 50 years in the future, soon, we're all going to have an Optimus robot. And that robot is going to do every single thing in our lives that we need done. It'll be able to, far better than we personally could, take care of seniors. It's going to and offer like home care type services. It's going to be able to do our jobs for us. It's going to be able to take out the trash and all the things we don't want to do. He thinks we're going to be living a life of abundance very soon because the robots that we're all going to have are going to do all the things that we don't want to do or we're tired of doing or can't physically do. He thinks we're on the dawn of something amazing. His speech was really good, and it's being praised by people around the world. Not by our media, because they won't give Elon Musk a win, but everybody should watch Elon Musk's speech from Davos this weekend. The audio I want to play for you is something that just resurfaced. It's an interview that Hillary Clinton did with MSNBC.
You know, the only other adversary of ours who's anywhere near as good as the Russians is China. So why should Russia have all the fun? And since Russia is clearly backing Republicans, why don't we ask China to back us?
I hereby tonight ask China.
That's right. And not only that, China, if you're listening, why don't you get Trump's tax returns? I'm sure our media would richly reward you.
Hillary Clinton making an appeal to the Chinese. And, you know, it occurs to me since she did that, relations with China did start to change around then. Not necessarily in Canada, but it became much more friendly to liberals. They became much more interested in the China connection, trying to team up as superpowers. I disagree with Hillary that the Russians back the Republicans. I think the Russians back whoever's best for the Russians to back. But either way, there was a direct appeal from Democrats. And ever since then, something weird's been happening. It's not a surprise that Mark Carney ran to China to try and get a deal done for two reasons. Number one, it makes sense. China has got the second biggest economy in the world. But they've also been heavily favorable towards left-leaning governments and liberal governments around the world. The election interference that China did in Canada wasn't to help the conservatives. It was to help Carney, Trudeau, and the liberals. Just keep it in the back of your mind, guys. This China thing, great. We need to diversify our trade partners, but we got to go in eyes wide open. And I'm really not sure that we did ourselves any favors, especially because there are so many links between liberal governments, the New World Order, and China.
And we have more China EVs coming up in DMs. But this one from Paul. Hey, Scott, quick question. Who is writing speeches for all the important people like presidents, premiers, and all that? Awesome podcast. I listen every day. Warm hugs for Anna. Oh, thanks.
Great.
Not for you, but for me.
That's a good question. All politicians employ staff, and the staff typically writes the speeches. Although I will say there are some people out there who are considered expert speech writers. And those people get paid very, very well to do nothing but write the speeches that our leaders give. Here in Canada, we're a little lazy. We have basically one core speech. And every time the prime minister goes to a different speaking engagement, they'll adapt it and tailor it specifically to that event. But by and large, it's the same speech. In the U.S., there's a team of people that write speeches for the senior politicians, and it's a very, very good job. I've written speeches, not for the prime minister by any means, but I've written speeches that politicians have used some or all of. It's a really neat thing. Cool. It's a cool gig if you can get it. I don't know how you audition to be a speechwriter, but there are people who do have that job.
Oh, that's so neat. I didn't know that you did that. That's pretty cool.
I've written speeches for a number of people, including myself, some that I thought I would give on the pod, and I never did. But I've written a few things that have been used here and there. So it's kind of a nice badge of honor when you write something and submit it, and then the leader ends up using it. It's kind of fun.
Absolutely. All right. Alex says, imagine that Canada kicked off the Board of Peace. Meanwhile, Russia is reviewing their invitation to decide if they'll partake.
What Donald Trump is doing here with this Board of Peace, just so everybody knows, is this is basically, in my estimation, a way for him to circumvent the United Nations. Typically, the work that's going to be done by the Board of Peace would be done by the UN. Donald Trump has basically pulled in select countries, and I'm not sure how he selected those countries or what criteria there was, or if he's just looking for countries that have the $1 billion that he wants for being on the board. He's charging countries $1 billion to have their leader on the board of the Board of Peace. Crazy. But then they're going to have a lot of money to work with. So I guess that's smart. And if countries are willing to pay it so that they have that kind of influence, why not? If they're willing to pay, take their money. The Board of Peace is, again, going to do the work that the UN was doing. And I really think that the main goal of Trump's here is to undermine the UN and make it even more irrelevant than it already is. If you think about it, the whole concept of the United Nations is great. Every country send one diplomat. We're going to meet a couple of times a year and talk about global affairs and how everything can work. But when we go into the New World Order, where things are fractured and it's more of regional powers, we don't really have a whole lot of need for the UN. And when you consider that the UN Security Council, certain countries have a permanent veto, they never get anything done. It's in gridlock because it's always going to be one of those major superpowers vetoing what the UN wants to get done. We spend a lot of money on it. It's not necessary. And I think that this is Trump trying to make sure that the UN basically goes into obscurity because they've kind of lost their way too.
Well, this has to do with that too. Question for your GMs. Where do you see Canada-U.S. relations and Canada-United States-Mexico agreement renewal heading after Carney's Davos comments and Trump removing his invitation to the Board of Peace? Thank you.
Trump removing Carney's invitation to the Board of Peace, I don't think is permanent. I think that's a typical knee-jerk reaction from Donald Trump. He gets angry sometimes and he looks for retribution. He lashes out. He's totally that guy. I don't think that this invitation is permanently rescinded. I think that if Mark Carney wants to be on the board, he will. I just hope we don't pay $1 billion for it because we don't have an extra $1 billion to spend here in Canada. Canada-U.S. relations, I think they're going to remain frosty as long as we have Mark Carney in government. And that's not a shot at Mark Carney, by the way. But Mark Carney and Donald Trump are opposites ideologically. Carney believes in, and he has worked his entire life towards, the one world government. He wanted that globalist goal to be implemented, and it was well on its way to happening. If Kamala Harris had won the presidential election, the world would not look the same as it looks right now. Trump was a disruptor. He's actually the one who, if you don't want the World Health Organization determining what vaccines your kid gets, if you don't want 15-minute cities, if you don't want that whole globalist agenda implemented in Canada, you can thank Donald Trump. He was the one who interrupted that, and pulling America back and doing America first has really interrupted the plan. So Donald Trump does not like Mark Carney, and Mark Carney is now getting more vocal about the fact that he doesn't like Donald Trump. Carney's now got some support coming from Beijing, and that's empowered Carney to speak a little more forcefully. But when he's speaking forcefully, he's not speaking for Canada. He's speaking for Canada's role in the globalist agenda. Think of the world, one world government everywhere, except for the United States and South America. That's basically the way this is going. I think that Donald Trump, ideologically, would be far more aligned with Pierre Poilievre. If our goal is to try and create the AMCAN fortress, as Doug Ford calls it, where Canada's got all kinds of energy and land and resources. America's got the smarts and the money and the technology. America protects us, but Canada offers more. We could have a very integrated relationship, and by and large, it would be great for them and it would be great for us. We're not going to get there, though, because that's not what Mark Carney wants to do. I have no doubt that Mark Carney is somewhat of a patriot. I think he does want to see Canada do well, but he doesn't want to see Canada fall into the North American or Western Hemisphere bubble with Donald Trump. He would like us to be more aligned with Europe, China, and places like that. I don't see much getting done in the way of renegotiating the USMCA or CUSMA. I don't think that Canada and the U.S. are going to be able to agree on much. Not while Carney is taking the posture that he is right now. If we have an election, if we go with a conservative government, which based on the current polling, we likely would do, I think it's a different story. I think then we can get down to business, because I think that while Pierre is going to fight relentlessly for Canada's sovereignty and Canadian prosperity, I think he also understands that we can't do that overnight, and we have to integrate with the Americans. The idea that we can forget about America and just rely on other middle powers and China, it's just not realistic, not in the short term. We'll all be dead by the time we even start to see any prosperity in the country. So something's got to change. And I also don't think the Canadian people are going to tolerate what's going on for much longer, Anna. People are broke and they're fed up. So something's got to give here. I think that something big is coming. I'm just not sure when. And I don't think that there's going to be much progress as long as Carney and Trump are adversaries. Until they get on the same page and want the same thing, don't expect much. And the USMCA, I think, is dead. I think Trump is quite content to let it expire and watch Canada flounder. Trump made a lot of headlines just the other day in Davos when he was talking about Canada. And what was it he said? Canada only exists because of America, or Canada's only
Something
alive?
like that, yeah.
And Mark Carney's response in that weird speech that he gave yesterday in Quebec City, it was strange. It basically said Canada is strong because we're Canadian. I mean, that's just words. It doesn't mean anything. At the end of the day, Justin Trudeau was right. Just over a year ago, Justin Trudeau, when he was prime minister and shortly after Donald Trump got elected, he flew down to Mar-a-Lago. He met with Donald Trump. Donald Trump said, what would happen if we imposed a 15% tariff on exports from Canada to the U.S.? Justin Trudeau's exact words were Canada would cease to be a country. So for us to pretend that we're not reliant on the Americans, just listen to Trudeau. He was absolutely right. We would cease to be a country. We just couldn't do it. So Trump is right. I give Carney credit for trying to stick up for Canada, but again, it's just words. It doesn't mean anything. I don't know a whole lot of Canadians that are thriving right now just because we're Canadian. So we've got to cut down on some of the hyperbole. We've got to get back to talking about practicality. And practical is we build more pipelines. We start shipping out our oil and our LNG. That would be a practical thing. We got to look for ways that we can work with the Americans and put those into place, because in the same way that we were very reliant on the Americans, and that's why we ended up in the situation we're in now, there's a very opposite scenario that's possible where we reintegrate with the Americans and they become dependent on us. Imagine if the U.S. would love to tell us to piss off, but they can't because all their oil comes from here and all their natural gas comes from here and all their resources come from here. Integration with America is not a bad thing. It's just we're doing everything we can to try and avoid that. And I don't think we should be afraid to deal with the Americans. I think the alternative is far worse, personally.
Okay, well, this is interesting. It's from Shane. Hey, Scott, hope you're well. After hearing Carney's speech, did you think that he was focusing more on globalism or Canada's sovereignty? I had a similar discussion after someone praised the speech in a long Facebook post. I shared your podcast link, but he resorted to name calling and didn't even listen to it fully. I can only imagine what your messages are like from people who won't consider opposing views. Props to you. You probably handle better than I would.
I got some really nasty DMs from time to time, but for the most part, though, I think I have a civil dialogue with all of my listeners. I respect the hell out of people who are willing to hear an opposing opinion, and we can agree to disagree. Maybe we can talk it through, maybe bring each other closer to the center. But, people who are just finger in their ear, la, 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 I don't want to hear it. I don't really respect that because that's how we ended up in a situation where half the country has no idea what's really going on. If you just watch the national or the CTV national news every night and you don't take the time to do your own research or to listen to podcasts like this or to follow some of the more popular social media accounts that report things in a much less biased way, you really don't know. It's infuriating that there's people walking around with their chest puffed out, elbows up, thinking we're doing everything right because we stopped buying American orange juice. Stop. I mean, you just look stupid. We're doing everything right because we've stopped traveling to America. You're not helping, and you really don't understand what's really going on. And I just don't know how to tell people everything you think is true, you've got it completely wrong. Because when they watch TV and they hear Adrian Arsenault or Omar Sachedina tell them this is the way it is, they just trust that that's the way it is. And in reality, they're missing a large part of the story. They're not a fully informed person when they're having an argument, and that's where a lot of the name calling comes from. Hey, liberals, hopefully you can acknowledge that that is your go-to. Anytime we want to talk about something, you immediately, when you can't argue anymore, resort to name calling. And it shouldn't be like that. We should have a civil discourse. We should be able to talk through our issues. I'm glad now that the word globalist isn't a bad word that'll get you canceled. I'm glad that we're now openly talking about it. Even Mark Carney, even though he wouldn't say the word globalist, he called it the G word. Even he can acknowledge that it's real, that there was an agenda for a new world order. And now that new world order is on hold. They're trying to rethink it because Trump pulled America out and tried to make it America first in his country and really for the Western Hemisphere. Canada's got to do the same, but I don't think Mark Carney's the guy who's going to do that personally. And I'm not saying he's not competent or capable. He's obviously a very smart man. He gave the best speech he's ever given the other day in Davos, but he hasn't done anything to back it up with actual actions. You know, I mean, he talks about all the things that we're going to do or could do. And I don't know, like, how great is sex if I keep telling you it's going to be great, it's going to be great, but we never actually do it? You know, like at some point, you got to ask, what the hell is going on here?
That's a really great thing.
And there's no action on this. So, you know, I do wish that people would be a little more open-minded to opposing opinions.
Yeah. He
said he shared it with somebody and they wouldn't even listen. I get that a lot, just so you know. Scott, I'm so frustrated because you played the audio. Everybody who listens to your pod heard it. What you said is true. It came right from that person. And I tried to play it for my partner or my kid's teacher or whatever, and they just refuse to listen to it. There's people out there who just don't want to know the truth. They just want to assume that everything they think is happening and that there is nothing else. Me personally, I don't understand that, but I'm also not going to argue it too much. You do you. Whatever gets you through the night, just keep in mind and keep your mind open to the possibility that you might not be fully informed. I'm not fully informed. I think I'm further along than a lot of people are, but I'm still learning every day about what the agenda was, about the old world order, and what the new world order is going to be.
Well, and Shane went on to say this, hey, this guy was going on about Canada's sovereignty and how the U.S. shouldn't be allowed to invade Greenland because it could happen to Canada next. I told him, as much as I hate to say it, the Canada we grew up in is gone, and this country just isn't that great anymore. Yet I keep seeing articles and posts claiming Canada is thriving and heading in the right direction. At this point, it makes me wonder if I'm the crazy one or am I missing something?
No, you're not missing anything. They put out a lot of misleading statistics and facts, and they'll cite things like GDP, and it's all meant to mislead you. At the end of the day, the country's not doing great. And it's a great point that Shane made there, too. This is not the Canada you grew up in. I think there's a lot of people, particularly the elbows up folks, who look around, but they can see plain as day things are bad. But they're remembering a time when things were great. And at a point, I was just as proud as they are now to be Canadian. And I was all in on that. But I've seen the decline of our country, and you can't ignore it anymore. We're not the same place we used to be. Too much has happened. And to Mark Carney's credit, he said nostalgia isn't going to get us anywhere. We have to look at where we're going. And the good old days that we remember are gone. And they're not gone because Donald Trump got reelected. If Trump wasn't here, I don't know that you would like the alternative, particularly the seniors.
All right. Well, Karen writes, how can someone campaign on fixing things with the U.S. and then do the complete opposite while everyone's okay with it? Carney is going to destroy Canada and walk away like a Deadpool character with everything wrecked behind him. I wish a reporter would just call him out and say, liar, liar, pants on fire. Karen, that's Karen.
Mark Carney doesn't hate America. He doesn't hate America at all. His kids live there. His wife lives there. His company's there. Mark Carney is not anti-American. He's anti-Canada working with America. He doesn't want a deal because what Trump is doing is completely contrary to everything he wanted to see done, where the globalists control the world through multinational bodies and a lot of money gets wasted and filtered off to them. That's what was happening. There's no way to deny that anymore. Read me the first part of that question again.
Yeah, how can someone campaign on fixing things with the U.S. and then do the complete opposite?
That's what's been happening for years in this country, though. It's been a constant bait and switch. Mark Carney said during the election, I'm going to cut your taxes. Well, that tax cut was small to begin with, and it's already been wiped out because he raised payroll taxes. He said he would fix our criminal justice system. Nothing's done. He said he would do a lot of things, and nothing is done. How much did we talk about taking down the interprovincial trade barriers? They're not down. Nothing that we were promised was actually delivered, and they know that. The Liberals are very, very good at promising what they think the electorate wants, promising to be normal and reasonable and down the road, and we're your centrist government. But then once they get in power, especially if they have a majority, it's 4 years of just free-for-all, doing whatever they want. The election is just the marketing campaign. The actual execution is in governing, and they do not have to be synonymous. The Liberals are famous for this. We've seen this many, many times. No one should be surprised. A lot of promises, a lot of announcements, nothing gets done. I'm just wondering how many more times Canadians are going to fall for it. How many more times are you going to get conned before you finally say, you know what, even if I don't know or like the other guy, I'm going to give the other guy a shot because I know how this book ends, and it ends the exact opposite than it began.
All right. Well, MS says, hey, Scott, I listened to your January 21st podcast. From what I've seen since the PM was elected, there was never a serious plan to negotiate with the U.S., and it's become clear he never intended to work collaboratively. This feels deliberate and aligned with a more socialist NWO-style direction. I don't believe that's good for Canada. I think things will get worse, especially for the middle class, and that we're heading towards a full socialism. Free enterprise is essential for growth and opportunity, and letting the private sector lead is how Canada prospers. I don't think the side Carney is choosing supports that. That's my 2 cents. I hope I'm wrong.
I mean, there's a lot of reason to think the socialist agenda is the one that Mark Carney, it's the one he's always known, and it's the one he has worked very hard to try and implement. When he was advising Justin Trudeau, all of the policies that Trudeau put forward were socialist in nature. Are we ready to go back to capitalism? Are we ready to go back to letting the private sector do what the private sector does? Build jobs, expand, pay out good, reasonable salaries that are affordable so business can thrive and the middle class can thrive? Are we ready to go back to that yet? Or do you guys just want your universal basic income check to come in once a month? Work or don't, doesn't matter. You're only ever going to have $30,000 a year to work with, and that's just your life from now on. You won't own your home. It'll be a government property. You'll own nothing and you'll like it. Are you ready for that? Or are you ready to get back to the way things were when we were a capitalist society and we had a thriving middle class? That's the difference. But that's also a philosophical difference between liberals and conservatives. Socialism, I think, in my estimation, is a failed experiment. It's a different word for communism. I don't think we should go that way personally, but Canadians keep voting for it. Did Mark Carney ever intend to do a deal with the Americans? I think at one point he did. I think at one point he thought, okay, I'll get elected. We'll do some deal to placate Donald Trump. We'll wait it out until the U.S. midterms when he can't do whatever he wants. And if he wins in the midterms, we'll just wait till the end of this term. The left has done enough research that they know it's going to be a Republican government in America for a very long time. The Democrats are so far gone in America, there's no reason to think that J.D. Vance or Marco Rubio won't be president in 3 years when Donald Trump is done. And they're going to continue on with this America First agenda. America's out. They're not participating in this new world globalist order. They're going to go it alone if they have to. And they want middle powers to side with them. They want to trade with them. But they're doing America first. The globalism, it could still happen, but it's going to be without America and without the Western Hemisphere. Carney, I think, looked at the options and he said, I still want the socialist aspect. I still want to do the new world order the best we can. So he's going to countries like China. And he's going to do it at the behest of dealing with the Americans. I think we're leaving a great opportunity on the table, personally.
Well, Clinton writes, hey, Scott, about your Wednesday pod on Doug Ford and EVs. I'm still on the fence about Chinese EVs entering Canada. There could be benefits, especially if it leads to local manufacturing. But Ford acts like they'll destroy Ontario's auto industry while ignoring the bigger threat, CUSMA. Trump has said he's not targeting auto parts, just finished cars after CUSMA is renegotiated. We might stop exporting vehicles to the U.S. altogether. Has Ford considered that? Ontario needs a real plan for how the industry will pivot. I'd love your thoughts.
I don't know what's going to happen with the auto industry. Interesting for him to say that he is conflicted on the Chinese EVs, because I've had this conversation with people and they agree with Doug Ford. Yeah, they're probably mobile surveillance machines. Yep, there's probably going to be issues with them. Yep, it's probably going to ruin our auto industry. Yep, it's going to cause this issue and that issue. But it's an EV and it's cheap and I want it. A lot of people are going to buy these things. Doug calling for a boycott, I think they're going to be sold out before they even land here. That's a big problem. Our auto sector, we could still have a thriving auto sector. I think it's totally possible. There's a win for both sides possible here. Donald Trump wants to be able to say he brought the auto industry back to America. He wants to see assembly lines cranking out new North American vehicles nonstop that were all made in America. Well, finishing the vehicles at the assembly plants is only the last step. There's a lot that goes into it before that, including research and development, manufacturing parts. There's all kinds of different ways that Ontario could have a thriving auto sector, but probably as a parts supplier, not as finishing off automobiles, unless it's specific examples or unless we're going to develop made in Canada cars. But that's 20, 30 years down the line, even if we started today. So we could salvage the auto industry, but it's got to be in complete, pure, lockstep partnership with the Americans. And I don't know that Mark Carney wants that deal. I don't think he wants us any more integrated with America. And there's people on the left and people who are low information voters who are all behind him on that have been brainwashed into thinking the Americans are the enemy, that think it's better to go with China than deal with Trump. You don't have to like Trump to appreciate the fact that we are probably better off with the Americans. If we could get a deal done, it would be great. At the end of the day, even though Doug Ford seems to be firmly opposed to getting a deal done with the Americans, I think he tanked that last deal, the one we had in November, intentionally. I think he personally exploited the situation with America and the tariffs to get himself reelected. I believe those things. But in his heart, I think he understands that we're better off with America. He used to talk a lot about the AmCan Fortress, and I still think that that's probably the way this should go. And it would be great for them, and it would be great for us. But now we've got a prime minister who's not in on this. So the whole thing is up in the air, a lot of uncertainty. One thing I do know for sure, though, is a hell of a lot more people are going to lose their job until we get a deal done with the Americans. Until that's done, the job losses will continue and we will not see prosperity.
We have a few more on EVs here from Anonymous. Good afternoon. Love the pod. I listen every day. Just a thought on the China car deal. We already have Chinese-made cars. Almost all Buicks, all Polystars, some Volvos, and some Lincolns are all made there, maybe more. So if anyone worries about spying, that's been a possibility for years. I think Big Three mainly resist because it shows cars can be made cheaper elsewhere. Again, love your pod. Keep up the great work.
Thank you. Who's that from?
Anonymous.
Okay, let me just say, I understand that there are some vehicles that get assembled in China, but one thing I would point out is these specific Chinese EVs that we're allowing into the market, those are state-sponsored companies. Those vehicles are heavily subsidized by the Chinese government, and those vehicles, all their sensors and whatever else is in it that I don't even know about, all of the information gets transmitted through servers that are in China. And that's the big problem. That was also the big problem with TikTok. By the way, did you notice it took less than a week after Mark Carney got back from China? And all of a sudden the TikTok ban in Canada's off. Mm-hmm. They've dropped their opposition of TikTok operating in Canada. And that wasn't in the big announcement, was it? It wasn't that long ago. It was Canadian government policy that TikTok must wind down operations in Canada. Now, all of a sudden, they're back, no restrictions. The big concern is information that goes through the Chinese app and also through the Chinese EVs gets transmitted back to Beijing. Now, if it's a Buick that we're talking about, it may get assembled in China, but it's still a North American auto company, and the information, wherever it goes, is not going through Chinese servers. That's just where they built the car, and probably because they've got cheap labor over there and cheaper parts. Understood, okay, but there's not as much of a security concern with a car assembled in China versus one that is state-sponsored by China. You know what I mean?
Yep. And Ian writes, hey, Scott, great segment as always. I was thinking while listening to your New World Order piece, do you think Canadian owners of Chinese EVs would be allowed to enter the U.S. with them for travel?
No, I think it's going to be a long time before any of those vehicles are allowed in America. You're going to get to the bridge and they're going to turn you right back around. You can leave your car here. You can go rent a car if you want, but you're not bringing that car into America. And I could see them taking that stand if for no other reason but spite, because that's more integration. Once China moves into Canada, they have such easy access to America. You know, I mean, I think the Americans take the threat of the Chinese being in North America very, very seriously, and they're going to ban those cars real quick. I don't see you being able to drive that car to the States.
Well, this one's from Anonymous. I work at the Toyota plant in Woodstock. Today, Friday, is media day for the new 2026 RAV4 launch. Doug Ford is expected, and there's speculation about Mark Carney, but he's been in Switzerland. How interesting would it be if they were both there? I feel like Carney isn't helping Ontario's auto sector, and Ford says he's fighting for us, yet still he says he'd invite Carney over for a sandwich or a pizza. Enjoy the pod, and thanks for keeping us informed.
Yeah, a lot of people have a hard time reconciling the relationship between Doug and Mark. Doug seems to want to be popular with the Prime Minister's office. During COVID, he did whatever the PMO told him to do, and that really backfired on him. In this case, it backfired with what I would consider his base. And with the situation now with Carney, people are upset at Doug. Conservatives are upset at Doug because he backed Carney and tried to sink Pierre's campaign. That is probably the reason that Mark Carney is prime minister. You would think that Mark Carney owes Doug Ford because it's very possible he's prime minister now because Doug Ford backed him. I think that Doug is probably wise to choose his words carefully when he's around the prime minister. I don't think that people, generally speaking, not the conservative side of it, really want to see him cozying up to Carney. And frankly, right now, he's got every excuse that he needs to break away from Carney because Carney did totally throw Ontario under the bus. You know, if we had a more vocal or active population in Ontario, there would be people screaming for an Ontario sovereignty vote. But nobody's talking about that, are they? In Alberta, this would have been considered outrageous, what Mark Carney did to Ontario. I think Mark is hoping that Doug is going to help him smooth this over, but will Doug do it? I think that Doug's got to look in the mirror and ask himself which side he wants to be on. A noble idea to try and be firmly in the center. I'll work with any party I have to, but when you are throwing your own base under the bus, I mean, Yikes. I don't know if Doug is on the right track here, and I hear it every single day. I want to like him. There's things that he's done that I think are great, but at the end of the day, I just feel like Doug is very misguided right now.
Well, Grant says, just listening about the Algoma steel mill, those job losses were announced 2 and 3 years ago by Algoma because of the green initiative forcing them to upgrade to electric forge mills instead of traditional. From my understanding, the costs are sky high to accommodate the liberal green agenda, but also the new tech requires less hands on workers.
Yeah, I mean, they were going green, and green comes at a cost. But who benefits from green? China, mainly. That's where they make the solar panels. That's where they're making the windmills. China's all in on the green revolution because they get very, very wealthy from it. So I don't blame them. If people are coming to you asking you, hey, can we buy all this stuff? We need batteries. We need solar panels. Okay, yeah, we'll sell them to you. They don't seem to practice what they preach, though. I mean, China burns more coal than anybody on Earth. So I don't think they're particularly green, but our green obsession here in Canada continues. Mark Carney is very much an environmentalist, and I think that we're going to continue going down that path. Well, you heard it with the carbon capture. We're intentionally going to kneecap our own oil industry to try and make it low carbon, whatever that means. So, something's got to change. The green revolution needs to be declared dead because people are out. They screwed us with the carbon tax for way, way, way too long. Now we can plainly see as gas prices go up. Yeah, Pierre was right. The carbon tax is still there. And they've introduced new clean fuel regulations. Everything green costs a lot of money, and it's the taxpayers that end up suffering because of it. We got to pivot away from that. America's dropping a lot of their mandates, and we've got to drop the mandates here in Canada, too. If somebody wants to be green, let them. But people can finally see now that it's a scam. The carbon tax was a scam. How much extra money have you spent over the years, Anna, buying things that are environmentally friendly? You look at that energy scale when you buy a new appliance. Oh, this one uses less electricity. I'll buy that one and I'll save money. Has your hydro bill gone down? No, they haven't. All that extra money you spent to get a green fridge didn't save you any money. The price has done nothing but go up. People are sick of being ripped off and taken advantage of, and that's exactly what's been going on for years. Energy Star compliant. That's what it was. How much more money have you spent to get something that's more Energy Star compliant? Your hydro bill never went down. It's done nothing but go up. It's crazy.
All right. Well, Anonymous writes, hey, Scott, I was just listening to the podcast and you were playing a clip of Ford saying that the Eglinton LRT will be open next month. That won't be the case. Laugh out loud. I'm an employee supporting the project and can tell you that although they have reached substantial completion, they still have things that they need to close out. Perhaps by spring or summer, it could open, laugh out loud, but definitely not next month, as Ford said.
I'm very curious to see what happens with this because this has been a major source of embarrassment. We brag all the time about all the transit we're building, and what we did get open doesn't work, and what we've been waiting for to open, there's still no light at the end of the tunnel. I don't know if this LRT thing is going to work out all that well. I think people have basically had enough, and my advice, if anyone at Queen's Park is listening, you better check, double check, and triple check before you say this thing is open and ready to go and wash your hands of it. God damn, you better make sure that thing works because you tried to sell us on, here's the Finch LRT. It's open. It's ready to go. Go ahead. The thing moves slower than the buses do. They put in electric switches so it freezes instead of using the gas-powered switches like everybody told them to do. I mean, it's been a complete failure and people have had enough. I would love to live in a transit city. I really would. Around the world, people take the bus. Here in Canada, if you take the bus, they look at you like you're a hobo. Oh, are you poor? No, the bus is a great way to get around. So's a subway. So's an LRT. We should have much better transit than we do. But the biggest problem with transit is we need people to ride it to be able to improve it and buy more and create a wider network. People aren't going to ride it if it's not reliable. It's a chicken and an egg scenario. And right now, we're in the egg scenario because nothing works and nobody has any confidence.
Well, Rob writes, hey, I have a theory about why government is ignoring the homeless but fast-tracking asylum and refugee claimants. Homeless people aren't seen as voters while claimants can become voters quickly. For example, your local MP, Karina Gould, recently posted a photo of an art gallery in Hamilton getting nearly $1 million. That money could fund multiple shelters across the GTHKW, 2 meals a day, cots, and enough police to keep them safe.
It's a great point. We give away money to a lot of things, and I'm sure they're noble causes. I don't know about this art gallery that Karina Gould tweeted about, but I'm assuming it's just a regular run-of-the-mill art gallery. Hey, if you want to open up an art gallery, great. But it should be self-sufficient. You shouldn't be getting government funds for that. If there's demand, people will go. When it comes to the needs versus the wants, the need is to get homeless people a safe place to lay their head and lock up their stuff and catch their breath and get some respite. And they need some food and some drinks. Just the basic necessities of life. We can't do anything for them, but we'll spend $1 million on a bonus to an art gallery. And I'm not belittling art or the artistic community, but Jesus, where's our priorities here? It's completely messed up. The problem is government is stupid. Like, honest to God, these people are just the dumbest in the world. And they will look and say, oh, there's no money in the budget for homeless people. But in a different budget, we have lots of money to hand out to art galleries. It never even crossed their mind that we could transfer money from one account to the other and help. You know, that we can walk and chew gum at the same time. Maybe that art gallery didn't need $1 million right now. Maybe they needed like 15, 20 grand to get them going to the next level. Then we take the other 985,000 and use it for things that we do need. We never prioritize needs and wants in this country, but every household does. Every single day they make those decisions versus things they need versus things they want. Government doesn't do that because they've got the backstop of, oh, well, we'll just print more money. And we all know how that ended up.
Well, Anonymous writes, hey, I have 2 questions. Do you think we'll reach an election before the Liberals secure a majority? And do you have an April election? And if we do have an April election and the Conservatives win, what powers would they have to reverse decisions? Could they leave some things mostly as is, making only minor changes if they were elected?
Okay, there's a lot in there. I think that it'll be April 13th or April 20th. We're having a federal election, just so everybody knows.
And so if the April election and the Conservatives win, what powers would they have to reverse decisions? And could they leave some things mostly as is and making only minor changes if elected?
At the moment, the way the election is going to be framed, this is the way I see it, is are we going to be Team China or are we going to be Team America? I think that everybody can see how this is unfolding. Carney wants a Chinese agenda. Pierre wants a North American agenda. He still has a lot to work out. I think Pierre Poilievre should be heavily engaged right now with the Americans, trying to work out a deal so that he can come to Canadians and say, here's the alternative. Carney wants to take us to China. I want to take us to an integrated North America where Canada retains its sovereignty. I think that that's the best plan. If Pierre isn't talking to some senior American officials about what that might look like, I think that's a missed opportunity. I think that it's just plain got to get done. And I think that if you hand Canadians the choice, China or America, you pick right now. And if you want America, you vote blue. If you want China, you vote red. I'm pretty sure I know how people are going to vote. Could Pierre unwind some of what's been done already? Some of it, but not all. And it's also going to depend if he has a minority or a majority. Electing a conservative minority is not going to do much for us because the Liberals will oppose everything. Anything that the Conservatives want to pass will not go through. We're going to have a gridlocked parliament and probably have another election within 6 months to a year. If you want the conservative agenda, if you want the integrated North America with a sovereign Canada, it's going to have to be conservative. That's just the only option. But if you're happy with what Carney is doing right now, you're entitled to be happy about it. It's just a philosophical difference. Some people think we should not be dealing with the Americans and they can't be trusted. And I'm not even going to tell you you're wrong. I'm just very hesitant about making China our new dance partner.
And then this is your final one for today. Andrea says, "Good morning, Scott. I just wanted to say thank you for your podcast. I really appreciate how you break things down. It helps me make sense of what's going on out there. I had a quick question for you. If there were nothing holding you back, do you think you'd still ever move to the States? Thanks again for all that you do. I really enjoy listening." That's
Thank you.
Andrea.
I appreciate that. And everybody who does. And there's been a lot of shares this week. A lot of people took the time to try and share it on their social networks and try and encourage people to listen. Thank you for helping me grow this podcast, because I'm not aware of many other places where you can go and you can hear long form clips, hear a little bit of analysis from probably what's going to be the most down the middle approach. Obviously, I have a bias. You've been listening to this episode. It's apparent to you that I'm a conservative, but I try and be fair and I try and acknowledge and validate all points of view that make sense. So thank you for giving me your time and trusting me every single day. I appreciate that. The question was, would I still consider moving to America? I don't want to be that guy who says, if the conservatives don't win, I'm leaving. But I think that something's got to change. And while I'm not ready to say I'm packing up and moving to America, I'll tell you that my son lives in America and is absolutely thriving. Absolutely thriving. He's getting ahead. He's got a great place in a nice, safe city. He's able to save some money and plan for the future. Everything is going well down there because America's doing things right and because they're doing America first. I don't feel like we're putting Canada first, and that's a big problem for me. You know, if you think about it, let's say Carney does win the next election, and let's say it's a majority government and he's got carte blanche to fully integrate us with the Chinese. Let's say that happens. The single biggest assault Donald Trump could launch on Canada is offering green cards to Canadians who want it. You know what? If you feel like your country has turned on you, you're welcome here in America. You can have American citizenship and permanent residency. And I'll bet you millions of Canadians would take him up on that. Would I? It's going to depend what things look like, but me being semi-governed by Beijing here in Southern Ontario, that I'm not interested in. I just want to get ahead. I want my friends and family to get ahead. I want people to have money in their pocket again, and I want the middle class dream. Nobody that I know is asking to be wealthy. They just want the basics. They want to put food on the table. They want to have a roof over their head. They want happy, healthy kids that are well-adjusted and normal. They don't want the DEI socialist agenda that's being implemented right now. They just want to get ahead and finally be comfortable and take their foot off the gas and catch their breath. They're exhausted from trying to keep up from the last few years. And that's not too much to ask. Just the way things are going now, it doesn't seem like that's ever going to be a possibility that people are going to be able to get ahead. So if it comes down to it, and there's an opportunity to pull the chute and get out, I think millions will take it. Will I personally? I don't know. It's going to depend. It'll be a game time decision. But I will tell you that unless something changes, the number of people that are going to keep turning towards the Americans while our government turns the country towards China is only going to increase. We're really getting divided. This is the latest wedge that the Liberals use, and they're very good at using those politically. The wedge is this. You're either Team Canada, which is with China, or you're Team America, which we don't support. And they shouldn't make people choose. It shouldn't be an unpopular opinion to support the Americans. You shouldn't feel bad about going to Florida for a vacation or going down to Vegas and taking them up on that Canadian money at par offer. There's nothing wrong with doing that. The Americans are still our closest friends and allies. It's just we've got leadership right now that has a different idea of where the country should go. And I disagree with it, but I'll concede there are a lot of Canadians who think this is good, or the media is going to go over the top to try and convince them that this is good. Everything right now on the mainstream media news, America bad, China not as bad as you've heard. That's what they're going with now. And eventually it's going to be a very pro-Beijing messaging that comes out of our media. And that's all meant to brainwash people. Get ready. It's coming. All right. Now I've danced around this way too much. Would I move? Right now I would. If Donald Trump was standing on the Ambassador Bridge handing out green cards, I might go, because right now I don't see a lot of hope. But I do think that we can get there. I don't think our chapter, or this chapter in our history, is done being written. We're going to have an election likely in April, possibly May, but I really think it's going to be April 13th or 20th. And when we do, this is Canada's last chance. Last chance to get it right. We're either going globalism with China or we're going integrated North America with a sovereign Canada. And it's just going to be that simple. America or China. Which one do you want? Canadians are going to vote. And I'd like to think I know how they're going to vote. But Anna, I don't know. I've been disappointed in the electorate before.
I have no idea either.
That's if we even have a free and fair election. We know the Chinese are going to interfere because they've got a lot to gain from a liberal government, right?
Man.
When you think of it like that, Any plans this weekend?
I'm just going to stay in.
Stay
It's
in.
too cold. We're in the coldest part of the world, and I'm okay with just ordering some food and snacks and staying in. You?
I got a rock game tomorrow.
Oh, fun.
For those who don't know, I do still work for the Toronto Rock, and we got a home game on Saturday, January the 24th. We're taking on the Georgia Swarm, and it's kids' night. You know who I'm actually doing the game with? I'm the in-game host. I'm the guy who's out on the turf with the microphone, and I'll do the ceremonial opening shot and give away the prizes and things like that. They've got a partner for me, though, because it's kids' night tomorrow. I'm working with, I think her name is Lunette from the Big Comfy Couch.
Oh my gosh, that is such a blast from the past. I remember that. And also how she was able to tell time with her legs. I have no flexibility.
I forgot about that, actually.
Honestly, I was like, damn, that's impressive now that I'm older that she was able to do that.
Anna, have a great
Thank
weekend.
you too.
Thanks for coming in. Friends, you enjoy your weekend too. I appreciate your time. If you like this episode, hit subscribe and I will continue to bring you whatever I can every single day. No weekend episode this weekend. Stay indoors, stay warm, and I'll catch you right back here on Monday.
Oh,